right, so we got 75 minutes, and I have only shown you one slide. So I have no, here's where I have to pivot, right? So I could show you, my presentation, or I don't. And I don't know, I'm getting this gauge that you're getting great stuff from what I'm talking about anyways. So why don't we take the next 75 minutes, rather than just pumping you more information, let's kind of go where you would naturally go for the next 75 minutes. Is that okay with you? So let's ask a couple of questions, and then we'll see where it takes us. Okay, if it goes back to the presentation, then we'll go. If your questions don't really excite me, then I'll go back to my presentation. All right, no, I'm just joking. I don't know who's calling. I'm gonna get like 6 calls so far. 2 from Austria. I'm like, I don't even know anybody from Austria. Like, they're spamming me big time. All right, so hope it's not important.
It's a new one.
Is it? All right. Oh, I got free no ID caller ID calls.
They'll say they're an auto claims or something. Accident.
All right.
Have you been in a car accident?
Crazy stuff. I love how they're inventive, at least. All right, so a couple of things. You're all in business. From an authority perspective, okay? From an authority perspective, that you have to gain market share in your space, your industry. What are the typical challenges that you're finding at the moment to do so? Now, it could be personal challenges, like I don't know how to do X, or I'm scared to do X. That's fine. Or I don't have the time, or I don't know how to structure my day. I get lost. I'm procrastinating, or whatever. I can talk about productivity if you want. Or it could just be like specific challenges. I don't know how to, and I'll be very clear. If I don't know it, I'll just tell you, and then we'll just move on, okay? So let's talk about some challenges from there, because your challenge, I can guarantee, is not the only person. You're not the only person who's dealing with these challenges. So let's talk several of them, and then hopefully we can tackle some, okay? Yeah, go ahead. Whoa. Time management, okay? Can I be a bit more? Can you be a bit more specific with time management? Like. Yeah. How many people waste time? Okay, not getting things done. Okay. Dealing interruptions and stuff. Okay, great. All right, so we can do time management. Yeah.
I struggle. Like, my target market is like remarkably blue collar.
Yes.
And internet and Facebook and stuff like that. But at least half of them just scary and taboo and that sort of thing. Sorry. Stuff. So.
He's talking in his tribe, that's okay. Because that's how they talk, right?
So getting through to those guys in a cost-effective manner can be a struggle too.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So we'll try to make it applicable. Like, how do you get the message across? Okay. All right. That's fine. We'll use an example of blue collar. What should you do? Okay. All right. Good. Anything else? Yes.
Growth. So we've had a very big growth period in the last 5 years. And how far do we go? Do we just keep getting bigger and bigger, or do we consolidate? Like that whole, do you just keep building, or do you stop? Or
what do you want?
I don't know.
Well, I think that's probably where the answer is.
Yeah. But it's just, do you put your energies and add more products because there's this kind of momentum and stuff, or do you then, you don't want to lose the quality? Is that really hard?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
I think I can follow on from that. We sort of gone to a plateau and we want to go up.
Okay. And what's the question there, though?
So how do you change direction to go up instead of staying really flat?
Okay. Good.
Can I start procrastination?
Procrastination? Yeah, we'll do that and we'll be here. Yeah. Seems like that's a hot topic at the moment. Yeah.
Mine's a bit the same as yours. Is like, where are they hanging out? Where?
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about hangouts and where they are. That's good.
What about factors you don't have control of, like, for example, the government changes the.
Okay. Controls. Yep. I have an answer to that. Yep.
What about like when we're trying to work out the secret and the hidden and the reality? Mm-hmm. I've got a very closed off group of people that we're not talking.
Are you one of them? Like, are you?
No.
In the sense that, no. Can you relate to them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's all right. So we can talk about that. How do you get to the hidden? Would that be interesting in people? Like, how do you get to the inside, the hidden part?
If you've got, yeah.
Yeah. If we got to it, then we'll definitely go. Okay. A couple more, if we need to. I'm just trying to get as much, and I'll try to go to the one that I can answer for sure.
I don't know how to articulate this. I was in this awesome program, Breakthrough for Business. You might have heard about it.
It's an awesome program. Great speakers, by the way.
Yeah, awesome. I had massive growth in my business,
Yep.
losing money, mechanics of it helped me just change my business around where it's really good now. It's the transition of doing all the cleaning, all the fixing, getting that right, and moving out of that into this whole digital marketing. I got that side of it. It's getting out there doing the social media, like I'm trying to articulate it in a way.
So how do you delegate?
Yeah,
how do you do it all?
There's so many platforms, and I know you can automate stuff and all that sort of stuff, but finding content and all that, I know my business. I've tried to have other people find content, they do it crap.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a whole, like, it makes my eyes spin in my head.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's about.
But it's the world that I now need to live in for the next level of my business.
Okay. We'll call it like business management or something like that, okay?
Yeah. I don't know if that was actually articulated what I want to say, but that's my head.
When I went into this current venture, I expected it would take 18 months to 2.5 years before it would start going like that. And that just over 2 years, 2 years and 1 month, and it hasn't started going like that yet. I'm needing the confidence to keep going.
Okay.
Should I put another year into it, or should I?
Okay.
Would I quit, or should I keep going, double up?
Yeah. All right. Anything?
Motivation, I guess, is the word.
Okay. Yep. Just because there's one more box, I like to fill it. Give me one more.
And be better as ours.
Anything? Nothing? Nothing? Pretty much. Yeah. Anything? Come on, one more.
I think good top tips for getting into the market, brand new, like you're just starting out.
Okay.
Just
All
to
right.
really get in there and
All right,
make some
perfect.
headway fast.
Okay. Like I said, we only got 70 minutes now, so which means we'll probably won't be able to tackle everything, but let's try to get as much as we can. Is that good? All right. So a couple of key things. I think these three things are very similar. Okay, grow slow, plateau, and quit motivation. Like, should I quit or should I be motivated? Sort of like that sort of stop. That's a very personal question. Just be honest with you. Like, it's a very, very personal question because every one of you, the three of you who asked that question is going to be in different positions, right? So one of the key things is that's why you got to really be very, very clear on your passion. Like, what do you are you passionate in this particular business? Do you want to see it grow? What do you see the projections going to be? And I'm not a business expert per se in the sense that, to say that you need to have like a 20-year plan and 100-year plans and all that stuff. Like, I would honestly say now, like before when I was, growing up and stuff, they were always talking about how Sony had a 300-year plan, right? So they, the person who started Sony had a 300-year plan. He mapped it all out and stuff. I look at that and just go, like, you don't know what's going to happen like in 2 years' time, like let alone 10 years' time. And I remember reading a story about Howard Schultz, and Howard Schultz is a guy who took Starbucks from a brewing company to Starbucks as we know it today. And he wrote this book called Pour Your Heart Into It, and it's a long time ago. I probably read that like 15 years ago. And it was a great book, and he just talked about how Starbucks grew and everything. And then he stopped becoming the CEO, and then Starbucks was starting to tank. And so when he came back, one of the things that and then Starbucks had a bit of a turnaround in the last couple of years. And then one of the things he said was that in today's age, you couldn't even predict what's going to happen next year, just because the market is changing so fast that he couldn't even predict what's going to happen. So you're literally on a quarterly basis on pivoting. Okay. Now, every one of you are in different stages of your business. So it's hard to kind of answer this on a blanket statement. So let's try to break it down. If you're a startup, you have every advantage. And this is how I break it down in my profession for anybody else. Is that, listen, there are two groups of people in any group, profession, industry, or business. There are people who are the young crowd, like who is just starting out, right? You might be a startup or you're young. You don't have as much, experience, right? And then there's people who have a lot of experience, right? But the problem with that much experience is that it's very slow for you to move and pivot, right? Think about that. Like think about just from an age perspective. If you have a mortgage and you have kids and you have like debts that you have to, it's hard to just go, you know what, stuff it, I'm going to just go here, right? Whereas if you don't have a mortgage, no kids, no nothing, in a sense that that's going to hold you down, it's like, whatever, I'll go here, whatever, I don't like that. That's what's happening, right? But that's always been the case. So the advantage of these guys who don't have as much experience have the strong ability of pivoting very, very quickly. You want to use that. You guys, or the people who are in this group, don't have that same ability to pivot because they don't know how to, because it takes longer to learn these new platforms. However, you have a whole bunch of experience that these guys don't have. So each group has their own advantages. You just got to lean on your advantage. Does that make sense? And so you just got to know what's right for you from terms of genius perspective. So let's go back to your growth question. Should you grow, should you not grow? I think the key question is that what does your life look like in 2 years' time if you did go on this path or this path? And how I make decisions on that. So let me give you an understanding of how I make decisions. So give you a background. I moved here 2002 for a year. That was my 10 months. My wife came over here. My wife and I came over here for 10 months. That was the original plan. 14 years later, I'm still here, right? So plans change. 2 years ago, I decided I came back from a seminar once and I go, you know what? I think I need to give this coaching thing a full-time thing. So I decided to come back and I said, I'm looking for an associate now, and I'm just going to take a sabbatical away from practice and just let it, just let someone else control so I can focus on my business. And so I did. Within a month, I found someone, and I saw my clients, and they say, okay, next ones I see you, you'll be seeing someone, so I'm taking sabbatical. And they're like, what's going on? Like, how long are you gone for? I go, I have no idea. It'll probably be at least 6 months. But don't worry, Wayne will take great care of you, So I did that. About a month into that, I was like, you know what? I don't want to go back. So then I sold my business, so I never went back. And I sold my business, and then it was about July 1st. I sold it on June 30th. So July 1st, I'm like, okay, well, now I'm full-time now in this business. I was in Perth. I've been there for 12 years. And then I said to my wife, I'm like, I think we should move. So we decided to move. I took her to Sydney. I went up to the Northern Beaches. That's where I live now. I just fell in love with it, and I said, you should go check this out. So we took a holiday to Northern Beaches, and she said, yep, okay, I see where you're at. So my real estate agent said, you should put your house on the market when you're on holiday. We had a 1 month trip booked to Europe that I was speaking at a couple of events over there. So she said, because you clean it up once, you don't have to worry about cleaning up again, right? Which is actually kind of smart, right? Because open houses are a pain in the butt, especially when you got kids. You got to clean up their toys every single weekend, and so you clean it up like literally once. So my wife cleaned everything else like within the day, and then we literally rented a hotel room in Perth so that we didn't have to mess it up in the morning. So we go straight to the airport the next day and we're gone. But I got cold feet. Like, we were on a cruise. Like, we're literally on a cruise. Like, we went from Barcelona and we started on a cruise, and about 2 days into it, we're like, I don't think it's a good idea. We got scared. We got cold feet. You ever been to, you're getting cold feet when you make a decision? And you got cold feet. And so, okay, all right, we don't have internet on the cruise. So therefore, okay, next port we go to, we'll go on the internet cafe and we'll just write an email to say to the agent, it's like, the house is off the market. We're going to stay put. So we did. We got online, open the email. This is 6 days into it. Your house is sold. Decision made, right? Decision made. Now I'm homeless, right? Traveling in Europe. It's just started the holiday. I'm homeless, and now we're gonna figure out what. So literally, we were going from port to port, right? We're going from Nice and Italy, and we're just port to port trying to find a house now, and we found this house, that suited where we were going to be. I sent my friend Taki, who we're mutually friends with, and he went on with a phone, right? My wife said very clearly, here's the 100 criteria that you have to go follow through. And he's taking notes, right? He was actually being very serious. And then so what he did, we took a phone and literally went into the home and just like this. Because I don't know if there's any real estate agent in here, but pictures, they're going to do the best job to sell the house, of course, right? I can't trust the real estate agent. No offense to anybody here, but I would do the same, right? So you got to go in there and see it. So he's going in there filming, filming the house. I'm like, this is what the openness, I think that's what you're looking for, da-da-da-da-da. And then he shoots this 10, 15-minute video and then uploads it on Dropbox, and then we got to watch it and go, this is on. And we made an offer, and then, so we sold our house, bought our house while we're in Europe the whole time, right? And so when we got back, literally we have to go pack in 2 weeks, and then we have to move. So that's my life, right? Now that type of, like, it was scary, of course, but going back to decision making, here's how we made that decision. To me, the reason why I decided to leave Perth was a couple things happened. In my life, I projected myself 2 years, right? Max 5 years, because that's all I can think that far ahead. 2 years, 5 years, and I said to myself, like, where would I be? If I stayed in Perth, this is where I would be still most likely living in the same house. My kid's going to go to these schools, the same school, and that scared the living daylights out of me, right? If I moved, this would happen. No, I was not dumb enough to say, this is going to be better, okay? Because every decision, this is my point, every decision you make, okay, whether you stop or you go, you grow or you don't grow, there's always going to be consequences. Okay? There's always going to be consequences. It's naive to think that there isn't going to be. So be very clear. When there's A or B or C, there's always going to be consequences with every single one of those decisions you make. And if you write down the pros and cons, it will always be equal. Okay? They're always going to be equal because the world is in balance. Right? The world is always in balance. This is my opinion. It's always in a homeostasis. Right? You lose some, but you're always going to win some. How many of you ever had a really, really bad day at work? Right? Right? A terrible day. Like a customer just yells at you, that customer you keep on serving, that just yells at you, right? And then all of a sudden when you go home, right? He tips you. So that's the balance, right? That's the balance. But the thing is, like, when you have a bad day, like I used to have, like a tough day, like just whatever, guess what happens to your partner? Like if you have a partner when you go home to, what are they going to do? They're going to support you, right? How many of you actually had a really amazing day? Like you were at the top of the world, like you did a presentation, like you smashed that, right? Yeah, you smashed it. And you're like high as a kite. You're like just so excited. And you're like so excited to go home. And you're like, I go home and I'm just like, I smashed this event, breakthrough from business. Oh yeah, I did it so well. And guess what? My wife, right? Guaranteed, we're going, yeah, but you know what the hell kind of 2 days I had with the kids? Right? What's her job? Her job is to bring me back down. Right? Make sense? So I know on my drive home the next 2 hours after I finish with you is to decompress, let go of my ego, right? So then I go home, it's like even keel. Like it's not about, like I did an amazing job. I'm not going to say, I didn't, because it's just even, right? That's my compression time. So going back to consequences, that when you make decisions, is that you got to know all the consequences moving forward. And how I make decisions, one is, which consequences I'm willing to live with between A, B, and C? Okay? That's one of the ways I would look at it. Because growing is going to cause you massive headaches, right? Because of logistics, team, and all that stuff. But then not growing, consolidating, that's going to cause, that passion of just like wanting to drive. All those things are going to happen. You just got to look at it and go, which kind of life do I actually want to live? Because the worst case scenario, I would look at the worst case scenario in both scenarios and which one of those am I willing to live with, okay? And I never make decisions, I make decisions quite quickly, as quickly as possible, but having said that, on big decisions, I don't typically make quick decisions. What I do is make decisions, I take as long as I need, as long as the risk factor doesn't change. Once the risk factor changes, then I have to make a quicker decision. So let me give you an example of what that means. For example, if I'm trying to decide on, just say I'm walking down to my car and someone has a heart attack. The risk factor of me not taking action, every second counts to this person, so therefore the risk factor changes for me not making a decision. Does that make sense? So if the risk factors are changing, then you need to kind of decide whether you need to make quicker decisions. But if it's not, take as long as you need. Make sense? Okay. Hope that helps in some way from a decision point of view when you're moving forward in terms of growth, and also on terms of whether you just slow or grow. Going through plateaus is about, the motivation and plateau thing. We've all been there, right? How many have ever been to like a sort of stuck in business? Here's what you need to think is thinking the same way that got you there in the first place is not probably where the right mindset you need to be, right? Because what you've been doing in the past obviously hasn't worked to get to the next level. So what you need to think about is look back and going, what haven't we thought about? And evaluate and critique, like really be honest with yourself and going, why haven't we grown the way we've grown? Like what's specifically, is it because we're not attracting the right clients? Are we not converting the clients? Or are we not delivering the value? Really it comes down to business, only three things, right? It's attraction, which is about getting clients to even notice you, and then converting those clients, and then delivering on the promise. That's the three structure of any business. Would you not agree? Right? So it's about which part is broken, and how do we fix that? Okay? How do we clean that up? And trust me, every business has something to clean up or can make it better. Okay? And if you want growth, there's only really three ways to grow a business, right? Or profit. It's number one is having more new clients. Makes sense, right? More new clients will make you more money. Number two, charge more per product or per service. And third, increase the frequency of purchase. That's it. That's the only three ways you can grow to make more profit. The fourth one is lower your expenses, but not from a growth perspective. Like, makes sense? That will also grow your profit. But if you just want to look at growth side, you increase your new clients, you increase your money, you increase your frequency, that's how you're going to grow. But here's the thing. Watch. If I grew, and I don't, like I said, I'm not super mathematic, but if you just grew your new clients by 10% this year, you would have an extra 10% in income, right? If you increased your 10% in terms of what you charge, and you increase 10% of the frequency of the product or services that you charge, in total, if I increase 10% in each one of those categories, what is my total profit at the end of the year? Increase. It's about 30%. Okay? 30%, because it's a multiplying effect. So think about that. 10% increase is not a lot, is it? To get a 30% increase, all you need to do is have 10% more new clients, 10% increase in charge rate in terms of what you're selling, and 10% increase in the amount they buy. And that's it, to get a 30% increase in profit in your business. Right? Think about that. So if I saw 10 clients per year, all I need is 11. Right? If I charged $100, I need to charge 110. And on top of that, if they purchase 10 times, all I need to get them to buy is 11 times in the year. And on average, just doing those three things, having one extra client, charging $10 more, and having one more purchase will have a 30% increase in my profit. Make sense? You do that for 20%. Sure, I might not be able to increase my price. Fine. Then change up that or that. So you just got to look at where I need to grow and focus your energy on that. Does that make sense? Okay. And evaluating how you move forward, motivation is that, well, you're the only person who can decide on that. I can't tell you what to do because I don't know your business. I don't know what's driving it and what the whole box. You got to know what's stopping you, where's the traction, and be honest, and maybe just ask because from our discussion yesterday, you had pretty much 60 people, right? 60 companies that you deal with around the world, and that's it. So which means is that have an honest conversation with the top 5, the most 5 closest companies, and go, how come you haven't purchased, or people who haven't engaged with you yet, and what's stopping you? Just ask that question, and get an honest feedback. What's the worst thing that can happen? They tell you the truth, and you actually fix it, or you start to realize they have a misconception of your business, right? And you mitigate that. Because it really does, it comes down to communication, right? Think about any relationship, right? Partner relationship, husband and wife. Oftentimes, I mean, who's married in here, just so I know? Right. Okay, so most of you are married, so you realize, right, when we have communication with your husband and wife, typically it's a miscommunication, mostly from the male's point of view, right? It's always the male, right? We misinterpret, right, the intention of what the female wanted. Boys, yes? Yeah. Because why? We're wired in our brain to fix problems. So when my wife tells me a problem, my go-to is like, we just got to do this. But that's not what she wants, right? She wants to be heard, right? But that's a miscommunication. And she literally had to sometimes she would just go, Laurence, don't solve my problem. Just hear me out. Yeah, let me just talk about it. I'm like, okay, sorry. Close my mouth and just talk, right? But that's communication. But until I know that, if I didn't, especially when I've known my wife for 20 years. So at the beginning, I didn't know that. Probably for the first 10, 15 years, yeah? Right? And so when that happens, it's like, yeah, okay, oh, now I get it, right? Now I get it. But I still make that because it's wired, okay? So it's really about pure communication. Help? All right, let's go to, I think there was productivity on there, right? Procrastination, time management. Right, let's be clear, you can't manage time. It's impossible. So don't try it. No one in here can control time. You can't control time. What you can control is what you do in the 24 hours in a day, right? You have the same amount of time as I do. I have the same amount of time as Oprah, Richard Branson, Gary Vaynerchuk, or whatever. Everybody has the same amount of time is what you choose to do with that time. Okay, so that's rule number one. The problem with procrastination is because there's no structure, right? I'm a terrible procrastinator. I'm my mind just goes a mile a minute and thinking about different things all the time. How many of you? Yep. How many get distracted? Who's talking about distraction? Was it you? Yeah. Distracted. What do you get distracted by? Customers. Okay. Everything? Squirrels. Emails? Okay, emails. Perfect. Okay, when do you check your emails?
When do I check them?
Yeah.
First thing in the morning.
Okay, so maybe don't do that. Right? So think about this. How many people check emails first thing in the morning? Or Facebook feed? Or Instagram feed? Or whatever? Yeah? You pick up your, it's probably attached to your phone. It's literally, what's happening in the world? What did I miss? Right? Happens all the time, right? By the way, from a health perspective, just from a health message, don't have your phone beside you. If you are going to have your phone beside you, make sure you turn it off, in terms of take it on airplane mode, right? That constant Wi-Fi and the cellular signal beside your head doesn't do your brain very good. Okay, it's just a little health tip. So even in hotel rooms, the alarm. So but make sure you put on airplane mode because the alarm still works, right? So when I'm in a hotel room, obviously because I usually at home, it's in my office, but and plus, there's a feature on the iPhone now to actually turn down the blue light. That's probably a worthwhile thing to do too. Blue light. If anybody have tough time going to sleep, sometimes at difficult times when you have tough time to sleep because you're staring at a screen that has blue light, which basically mimics sunlight, which makes you feel like you're awake, or it's supposed to be mimics the sunlight, so your brain thinks you're actually during the day, so therefore you stay awake and you're trying to go to sleep right after you look at your screen. It's not good, right? So that's why your brain takes a bit of time. So there's a button now that you can actually do on iPhone to turn it down to make it yellow, it takes off the blue light, which then allows you to get into that rhythm of going to sleep. Okay. Sorry. Anyways, that's just besides the point. I don't know how that got into productivity, but so when you wake up in the morning, if your first thing you do is check your emails, guess what? You're living a life, and I'm guilty of this too. You're living a life based on someone else's priority. Right? Think about it. What is email? It's someone else's priority of you. Right? So therefore, if you really want to be productive, is make sure you don't do that. Don't allow them to control your life. Control your life and have some structure around it. So here's some tips. They're not any, I'll try not to give you any, I'll try to give it as best order as I possibly can. But this is what I've done. I've found that it works best. Number one is I structure something called ABC days. Now, you're going to have to apply it back to your business and your life and how you work because everybody's different here. But ABC days is this. You have A days, which is what I call action days. Okay? Action days are days where you actually are doing the work. Okay? So as a chiropractor, when I'm adjusting clients and taking care of clients or talking to clients, that's my action. I can't do anything else other than that. Right? I'm a technician at that point. Does that make sense? Okay? So that's an action. If you're a carpenter, for example, when you're actually working on a job, you can't be working on your business. You got to work on, you're actually in it. Make sense? So those are your action days. We all can identify what that is for you in your business. Your B days is your business days. Okay, your business days. Those are the days, or time periods, I guess. It doesn't have to be a whole day. But those are your time periods where it should be structured for your working on your business. Working on getting more clients into your business, working on your conversion, mastering your skill, making your makeup a bit better, refining your message, focusing on strategy. Does that make sense? delivering a better experience for your clients, okay? Those are your business days. And then C days are your care days, okay? Let's not forget about you, okay? Without you, your business doesn't function. So make sure you have a life, yeah? Your life, like C days could be like spend time with your family. It could be spend time for yourself. It could be your time when you want to work out, or that's when you spend time with your wife or your husband or your kids, okay? Those are your care days. Now, here's what you do. I think actually, if you flip through the page in the workbook, on the last page actually, oh, not the last page, sorry, it's my success planner, second last page, it looks like this, my weekly success planner, right? Okay, so you can use that if you want. Okay, you don't have to use S1, but basically that's a good calendar to first start off with, is to kind of go, all right, here's Monday, Saturday, Sunday, and there's my AM and PM, and just say you split the AM and PM into 2 sections, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so now it's like, okay, my action day, say I always gonna have to work, so let's say this is, so we'll start, just to say at 9 and we finish at 5, just make it simple. And this will be, say, 10:30, okay? And this will be 12, and this will be, say, is it 2:30? I think, I don't know, whatever, doesn't matter. So just say you go, these are my action days, these are my action times. Right? And just say I leave my care days over here, right? Then I gotta fill in, we'll also put my business days in there. Does that make sense? You just gotta structure your life. If you run your own company, like if you're the entrepreneur and you're the owner, make up your own hours, right? Like when I was practicing, I was working Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Why? Because I like to work hard for one whole day and I took a whole day break. It's just for my body's sake. Okay, so I worked hard for one day and then had the day off for my body. Because being a chiropractor is actually quite tough because you're bending over people all day. It's actually terrible for your back, surprisingly. I got a bad back, yeah, absolutely. So the thing was I worked Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and then I had Tuesday and Thursday as rest days for me. So when I had my first child, Kaya, 7 years ago, I was like, oh my God, it just absolutely changed my life. It's like she was the most beautiful thing in the world, and I was like, I can't be working that hard. I know, I only work 3 days a week, but it was working hard. And I go, you know what? I want to spend time more with my kids. I want to be one of those dads who's been able to kind of be there for the kids when they're young, right? When they go to school, I can probably be a bit more away, I guess, like now. But at the beginning, I just wanted to be there. So I started to change. So I took Fridays off. So I only worked Mondays and Wednesdays. And that's what I did. So then I had 4 days to kind of spend time. And then I had my other business. That's when another business started to crop up. But I got to dictate that. Make sense? Sure, was there patients that didn't want me to move? Of course there were. But at the end of the day, it's my business. Like I'm not just here to serve you. I'm here to serve everybody else and also my life first, right? And that's why I got into business in the first place, is because I control my hours rather than working for someone who controls me, right? Now, it's not for everybody. I'm not suggesting that's for everybody. I'm just saying, but what I'm very, very critical of is that you need to have is B days and C days, right? You got to be very clear on when those days are going to be for you, because those are the days that you're actually going to work on your business, right? Just because you show up to work and you're adjusting patients or you're doing the work doesn't mean you're working. Like you're working, but you're a technician at that time. But you run a business, which means that also requires energy and time, okay? If you can't do that during the 9 to 5, then there's all this time here. If you don't have kids, there's no excuse why you can't have those hours, right? When you have kids, I totally respect that. Like this game changes. Actually, I got way more focused when I actually had kids than when I didn't have kids. Because when I have kids, I was like just doing whatever. I used to work for 9 to midnight or whatever, just to do whatever. And then when I had kids, it's like I didn't have that time anymore, and I had to get super focused and get a lot done in the time that I actually got, because I got 3 hour sleeps. You know what I mean? The question?
I was just going to say, I've used a similar model for many years, for the benefits of Julie and Leonie. Do a B at the start rather than the end, and then add another one, E, which is your emails, put that later in the day.
Yes.
If you start with an E or you start with an A, you don't get back onto the other things.
Yeah, so I'm going to come there in a sec. So let's go there next. So you structured your week. Does that make sense? So structure is very important. I'm a very unstructured person. Therefore, I actually need structure to help me get in line. Make sense? If you're a naturally structured person, who's a naturally structured person in here? Okay, there's usually a few of you. You kind of naturally do this, so you probably don't need so much help. But for those of you who didn't raise their hands, you need help. So therefore, you need a structure that you can follow so that you don't go off track, because we go off track all the time. It's squirrel, squirrel, squirrel all the time. Okay? So you need a structure. So that's the week, right? So you plan the week. So here's another thing. If you're able to do this, I don't know if it fits in your business, but I'll just quickly mention it, is theme your days. Theme your days. So for example, like what you can do is that you go solely focus on the theme. So you can see there, I put a theme. So for Monday, it could be Momentum Monday for me. So which means that if I only have one day to work this week, what's the one project that I could focus on and get it done that I actually feel good I can take the next 4 days off? I don't usually do that, but like Momentum Monday is always just about me. I don't take any client calls, right? No strategy calls whatsoever. It's just me focused on one thing, on the one project that's going to help me move forward to where I need to go in this 90-day chunk. Does this make sense? Okay, so I focus on 90 days. We'll come back to that in a second. Yes? Tuesday could be Talk Tuesday. That's where all my clients have access to my calendar to book their own appointments. Okay? Wednesday could be Wealth Wednesday, which means working on one project that helps me build profit in the business. Do you see where I'm going with this? Just build a theme so that you don't get lost. I'm like, oh, it's Monday. I don't know what to do. Oh, you're going to go to your to-do list, right? Or don't you? So I'm suggesting is theme it so that you know you're focused, because I'm so super unstructured. So therefore, someone telling me, which is me, telling me what to do every single day is helpful. So I'm not sure if that helps you, but that will be good. Yes?
Can I ask you though, that's how I like to do it too, in that structured way, but now I've got all these demands and all my staff ringing me, I might have that idea of doing Momentum Monday, but I'm answering, but if there's complaints or there's inquiries or there's staff things, and they're interfering with my list.
Perfect. So this is where I'm going to go to next. So let's go from, now we got the week set, now we're going to go each day. Okay, so each day. So my day starts at 5:30, and I end at 5. Okay, so just say that's my day. So I typically do is each day I map out what I'm going to do that day or what I've already done. So I usually do this around 8 o'clock, right? And I just go backwards. So I wake up at 5, and from 5:30 to 6:30, I'm at the gym. So that's my CrossFit time. And then from 6:30 onwards, it's to 8, usually breakfast and getting ready, getting the kids ready to school and all that stuff, right? Make sense? And I usually start around 8:30. So then I usually say, for example, I might meditate, for example, or I might do the journal, which is basically this. Then I go, all right, so 8:30, this is the first thing. I don't check emails before 10. Okay? Because whatever emails I got at 8:30, I'm sure they can wait another 90 minutes. Right? So this is what answers your question. So just say that's 10 o'clock here. This time, I use this as like an hour of power or whatever it is, or 90 minutes. I use that time that no one can disturb me at that time. My room is closed. I don't answer the phone. It's on silent. No one can disturb me. And that's just the agreement that you have to make with your team to say, you can ask me all the questions you want, but not between these times, which is your B time, like your business time, right? That is just a simple conversation with all the staff at a staff meeting to say, I know you need access to me, but not these 3 spots in the week are non-negotiables, right? Does your staff call you at dinner time? So why? Because they know it's your dinner time, right? They don't call you at, they don't call you randomly. Yeah, sure, they got stuff they can call, but at the same time, they're not going to disturb you in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning, right? Why? Because that's your sleep time. Because somehow, unconsciously or consciously, you told them, please don't wake me up, right? So this is the same thing. It's just because you're in the office, just because you are in there, doesn't necessarily mean you can talk to me. Make sense? You just got to be very clear that this time, no one talks to me. I don't care if the door's open. You just write a sign on the door, it can wait. Whatever. Make sense? So that's how you would do it. I would block out those times. So then I would put on the appointments, blah, 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 blocked out all the times, and then whatever space I have, this is what I do. I write down, if I had 3 things I could accomplish today, what's the top 3 things I could, if I just did today, I'll be very, very happy. I'm sure you have 20 things you could do, right? But what's the top 3 things that you could do to move your step forward? And write those 3 things down. And then I basically slot them in the times that are empty, and I don't let anybody disturb me from those thoughts. Does that make sense? Is that helpful? Now, here's why I found this very helpful for me, is because I get distracted. Once I'm online at 10 o'clock, how many of you have ever been on Facebook for one thing, but then you kind of got sidetracked? Yeah, happens, right? So there's 2 ways you can go around this. One is when you recognize it, you go, oh crap, that was dumb. Don't beat yourself too hard, but you just go back to your calendar. What am I supposed to be doing again right now? It's already planned. But if you actually have to think about what you're going to do, you've already just wasted another 5 minutes just trying to get going again, and you lose the momentum. Does this make sense? By having your day planned out beforehand, you know what you're already supposed to do, so you just got to look at it and go, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be writing that email. You just go right back to it. Does that make sense? Another trick is setting your timer. You can set a timer for every, I don't know, depending on how distracted you get, 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes, or 2 hours. Okay? If you get really super distracted, then maybe 30 minutes will be good for you. And here's why the timer works. The timer will go off at 30 minutes or 60 minutes. And that timer is really not to kind of say things are done. It's more a timer to kind of go, what are you doing right now? Are you doing something that you're supposed to be doing? That's the key. Because if you're not, it's like a good little wake-up call to kind of go, oh yeah, let's get back on track. Does this make sense? Yeah, what? Yeah, exactly. And what it does, what it allows you to do is to never go more than, say, 60 minutes of doing something that you shouldn't have been doing. Does this make sense? And it's a good little thing to set that timer on a consistent basis, just to have a check-in with you, because we're terrible at time management, to know where am I supposed to be at the moment. Okay, is that helpful? Okay. Let's give you another tip. Is this good? Like, is you getting benefit from this? Okay, another thing is that you can do, how many have ever heard of a circadian rhythm? Circadian rhythm is a 24-hour clock, right? So you have the circadian rhythm, there's certain times you should sleep, certain times you should be awake, yeah? What most people don't realize that you also have something called the ultradian rhythm. The ultradian rhythm is basically the way your body moves up and down in terms of your energy through the circadian rhythm, which is basically the 24-hour clock. Your energy level typically goes around 90-minute cycles. You sleep on an REM sleep about 90 minutes. Do you notice that? Like you know, about 90 minutes, you go into a deep sleep and you come back up again. And sometimes you wake up, right? But sometimes you just kind of go right back into a deep sleep for another 90-minute cycle and just go into 90 minutes. So kids, you can see that a lot. If you make a sound around that time of 90 minutes, they're up, right? So it's a dangerous. But if they're in a deep sleep, you can like blast music and they'll still be asleep, right? So your body rhythms in the day also function in 90 minutes. Okay? Why do you think the structure of these seminars are on a 75-minute, 90-minute block? Because we know after 90 minutes, you're going to yawn, you're going to start falling asleep, and you're going to start not paying attention to what I'm saying. Okay? Right? So we know that. So therefore, we structure the day, your seminar, I don't know if Stephen wants to review this, but that's what I'm telling you. Basically, it's on a 90-minute type of cycle. It's because we know your energy can only last so long, and you can only handle me for so long. And then you need to stand up because your body's going to want to, like, I got to go pee. I need to stand. I need to stretch. Okay? So that's the same thing when you go to work, right? You got to understand the circadian rhythm that about 90 minutes in, you're going to have to change something. You got to change away from what you're doing, otherwise that becomes not productive. When you're studying, same thing happens. So what you do is you structure a couple of things. You can do one 90-minute chunk or 3 30-minute chunks. Does this make sense? I like sprints. So what I typically do is I change this to a 25-minute and then have a 5-minute break. And then after 3 rounds of that, I take a 15, 20-minute break just to kind of refuel. So that 5 minute might be just quick to change projects. When I say change project, it means that you literally shift complete different projects, right? Like you don't want to be working 90 minutes and then take a break and then work back on the same project, because that actually doesn't help. The reason why you want to do that is because you're trying to basically force your brain to work hard for that chunk, and you know you got a deadline, which is the 25 minutes or 90 minutes to get that project finished, and you're going to pump out that stuff a lot faster. But if you have like a whole day to figure out an email, you're going to take all day, wouldn't you? But when you know you only got 30 minutes to write this email and a deadline, you're going to get it done. So it's forced. If you want to enhance this to the next level, this is what I do. You don't have to do this. But you have a timer like this. That would drive you crazy, I know. Yeah, but it makes you move. It makes you move. It's just like a little bit in the background, and it's just like, I'm just on a timer. I'm clicking, like time is wasting. I gotta move. So it's just like slightly, it's not loud, it's just, I'm just putting it loud just so you can hear it, but it's like slightly just there. So I know like this clicking, like it's just moving. Now, it's not for everybody, like I said, but you can, like it's called the Pomodoro method, right? Basically, it's Pomodoro is a tomato, and they used to have the tomato timer, and that's how it goes. You can look it up. But basically, you do 3 by 3:30s, that can actually work really, really well. Fast sprints get you there faster. Make sense? But switch projects. So that's the ultradian rhythm. If you can work on that rhythm, if you work, say, 9 to 5, it's perfect. 9 to 10:30, perfect. Half an hour break. Half of that, what do you do in a half an hour? Go for a walk, right? You live in the most beautiful country in the world. Go for a walk, get some fresh air, do an exercise, do some burpees, right? Do whatever, right? Change up, refuel, have some great food. Like, don't add some carbs in at that time. Like, have some protein, right? Have some nuts, have some really good food, right? And that will help you sort of re-energize your body. It doesn't have to be half an hour, it could be 15 minutes. But you just want to change position, especially if you're sitting, right? If you're a sitting job, you want to move. You gotta move, okay? Because that's gonna wake up your brain. Your brain is, the reason why, so this is coming from a pure chiropractic point of view. Your spine has more receptors, right, in terms of interpreting movements than any part of your body. So which means that your brain, right, gets information, it actually fuels the brain by movement. Your body's designed to move. How many of you have ever come home from work really absolutely exhausted? And you sit down on a couch to watch TV for the next 2-3 hours, right? And you're actually more tired. Would you agree? Flip side is that you're tired, you come home from work, and you actually go, you know what, let's go for a walk. And you go for a 30-minute walk, and what happens at the end of that? Do you get more tired, or actually you feel more energetic, right? Why? You actually expended more energy than you would if you sat there for 2 hours, but yet you feel more energetic because you moved. Because every time you move, right, you move your spine, and it stimulates and drives the brain and actually lights it up a bit. So that's why you should move. That's why, honestly, to break things up, doing a couple of push-ups, doing a couple of sit-ups, it's actually pretty good. Not for exercise point of view, just to move your body actually lights up the brain a little bit. A change in posture. Helpful? What else do I want to go with this? I just want to go back to this chart here. I only got like 10 minutes. So we kind of answered that's, oh no, sorry, we haven't done that. Message. Okay, let's go there quickly. Your problem was message and mode of delivery. Okay. Yeah, it goes back to the point I made earlier today, is that you really got to be very, very clear on where your market hangs out. If your market doesn't hang out on Facebook, on Instagram and stuff, don't go there. Like, why waste your time there? Okay? Go to where they are going to go, right? It might be the pub, right? It might be, but have the conversation where the conversation's at. So I would get inside that person's head and go, if I had a problem like this, where do I go to solve that problem? Right? Do I go online on Google and type it in? Because if it is, then maybe Google Ads would be the best place, right? Like, for example, like chiropractors right now, they're all thinking, oh, I need to do Facebook ads. Well, not really, because if you're in pain as a client, as a sort of prospect, if I'm in pain, I don't go to Facebook to look for my chiropractor, right? I'm going to type in Google to go Wollongong chiropractor, right? Or Wollongong back pain, how to solve whatever. That's where I'm going to go, right? So that will probably be a way better platform for me to kind of attack or market to rather than trying to go on Facebook. Now, you can go on Facebook for a branding perspective, and that's a completely different thing, strategy, but you got to go where the market is. Does that make sense? And talk to what they want to hear. And I have no problems, like, you know, you were saying they're apologizing for swearing. I get it. In your marketplace, that's how people communicate. You need to use the language and how that marketplace serves.
Most people may want the flies. And if you two-stitch, they don't relate to you.
They don't relate, exactly. You need to be able to speak their language. And it's very, very important to be able to kind of gravitate to whatever language they speak. That's why you need to know your marketplace, and your messaging has to match that type of language. No different than what Johnny was talking about before, about high end. You need to speak at that level. Like, you know, you got a sophistication in terms of, and same thing with interior design. Like, if you're gonna do interior design, you know right away this is not a cheap job. It's gonna be high end, catered, tailored design for, you know, that specific niche and group. So therefore you need to have that skill set and be able to display it on a visual image for that. And when you consult with them, you're gonna have to be able to, I don't care how great your Instagram post and your Pinterest, if you can't deliver on that promise when you actually speak to them and consult them, you'll lose the sale. Because it's not just about attraction, it's also about conversion, right? And I tell chiropractors all the time, it doesn't matter how smart of a chiropractor you are or how great of an adjuster you are, if you can't convince someone why it's important to be adjusting your spine, you're never going to be adjusting anybody. I don't care how great of an adjuster you are. Make sense? So you can be the best carpenter, you can be the best interior designer, if you can be the best, paintball, company, but if you can't convert them when they come to you, you've got a problem. So messaging and communicating is very, very critical. And the best way to do it is to actually get inside the person's head. You know, get inside to that hidden message. How do you find that? Well, the best way to find it, like that's the question, right? How do you get to the hidden and the secret? Typically, we kind of serve people that we already are or have been in the past. Typically. Now, not everybody in this room is like that, but typically. Now, in that sense, you know instinctively already what their hidden stuff, because that's exactly what you felt or what your colleagues felt or what your friends felt like, okay? So for example, I'm a father of 2 kids. So I kind of get an understanding. If I talk to another parent of young kids, I can relate to them because I understand. Yeah, exactly. Like they might be having some troubles with some tantrums and colic. Even though my kids never had that, but I can most likely get inside their head to relate to what that would feel like. Does that make sense? Because I'm a parent. If just say I had a friend, say I meet someone who has a kid who had a disability. Even though my kids don't have a disability, but I can relate that, man, I'm sure at one point in my life, I would imagine, what if my child was born with a disability? What would I feel like? It's being empathetic. Not sympathetic, but empathetic. And that's how you get to the hints. Because even if I put myself in their headspace, I would be able to grasp what are some of the deep fears that I'm actually having. That's the question you're trying to ask, okay? And it's actually, it's really just trying to get into people's emotions and understand their emotions. Because people don't buy on logic, right? People buy on emotions. And we were having this discussion before about the companies I mentioned, Tesla, Apple, Virgin, and can't remember the other, Disney. Those companies, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. Matt was talking to me about, like, he thought I was going with that story, was saying that people are buying based on the vision that they had, and that those guys that actually sold people on the vision, and that's absolutely true. Companies that sell you on the product, like, hey, this is a 5.7-inch iPhone. It contains 128 gigabytes and takes 1088, PXHD. You're like, boring. What? What do they? How do they sell iPhones, or how do they sell iPads? You ever seen the commercials? It's real life people, just like you and I, doing amazing things with just a phone. And it's all different. Like, it might be someone who's like, I don't know. I remember seeing one commercial. I was blown away. It was like a hockey team. They were playing hockey, and then the coach pulls out an iPad and draws like the diagram, and this is what I want you to do, or films it and go, this is what you should have done, right? We're like, oh, I didn't know an iPad could do that, right? What are they showing? They're showing you what an iPad could do in the hands of normal people like you and I. There's no point showing you of someone who's like if an iPhone went to like a celebrity, right, and get a celebrity to take photos and, that's not real because you can't relate to a celebrity, right? You can't relate to someone like that, right? It just doesn't make any sense. And so it's just like they're trying, think about commercials. Like I love couples commercials, like when they have the husband and wife. Do you ever notice that the husbands, that the guys in those commercials are never like super good looking? Like they're usually the average Joes, typically, because they're trying to relate to the most people, because they know that if you put like a super hot model, like it just for a male perspective, it's like, yeah, no way, it just doesn't relate to me. Does that make sense? And so that's what they do that. If you watch commercials, they do a really good job of doing that. So it's about getting to understanding of this hidden secret. How you get there is just you got to know. If you don't have any relationship of what that feels like, you're going to have to pretend. So before I had kids, I dealt with a lot of kids and family and parents as a chiropractor. And I used to give a lot of advice to parents. It worked out really well until I had kids, and I went, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I gave you that advice, because now I understand, right? But like you just literally have to kind of be in their shoes as best as you can. You got to do the best, because if you have no experience in that, like I'll never understand what a woman goes through, right, during pregnancy or giving birth, right? I would never understand. I was there, but I can never feel that. So, but I can do my best to appreciate what they had to go through. Make sense? And that's empathy. And so when you don't know your market, because you haven't been there, but you gotta learn to be like that. So I for example, I didn't, if I had to sell to, say, blue collar tribe, like I used to work in a practice. It was interesting. I had two practices. One was up in the hills in Kalamunda and top of Perth, but then there was like down the hill. So these were blue collar workers, typically in this particular city, township, suburb that I lived in, in that practice. But this was more like people who actually went corporate jobs. And I used to float between the two practices. So I had to be like a chameleon, right? In one spot, like I had to kind of talk differently. And then when I go down the hill, like I would have to talk a little bit differently. And how I communicate was completely different. And when I used to get to observe, when students used to come observe me, I used to go from room to room, like so I had 2 rooms. I said, don't worry about what I say, but just watch how I act. Because it's not about acting, it's just I'm still being who I am, but I'm changing the tone. Like if it's a female, I typically will kind of have a certain tonality and change in the modality of how I speak when it comes to a guy. Right? Guys just want to get short to the point, like, come on, let's just get going, right? Girls, they kind of want to chat typically, and they want to know, they want to be heard. So I know that, so so I'm like being a chameleon away. And you have to be too with your marketplace. One person at a time. Does that help with that question? Okay, how long do I have? 5 minutes. Yes, go ahead.
Are you the best chiropractor in Australia?
Pardon?
Are you the best chiropractor?
In my mind, yes. So I've always thought, this is the best quote that I've heard from a chiropractic point of view, and I hope you can appreciate it and somehow relate it back to you. The biggest downfall as a chiropractor that we need to get to, like as a chiropractor, from my mind, the biggest regret that I'll ever have is that I can never adjust myself. Right? I can never adjust myself. And that's the biggest regret, in a sense. Because if I can get to that place, that I'm so good in my mind, to me, like I'm not going to brag about it, but in my mind, I'm so good that I wish I can only if I could just adjust myself, just once, just to feel what that feels like, right? I can't. That's my biggest loss. And so that's the place that you need to be when you build authority, is to kind of go, you need to feel, whether you're not at this moment in time, but you need to kind of go, I need to be number one in this marketplace and dominate that space. And you do everything possible to kind of get there, right? You can create your own little niche. It doesn't have to be like the number one thing. You don't have to be, you can go to be, yeah. Make sense? I don't know that's where you're going with it. But.
Well, I was going to ask, well, why do people listen to you? Why do chiropractors come to you to listen to you? You're the expert, you're the number one.
So, okay. So a couple of things, that comes back, so thanks for looping this back to authority. One of the key things is that in order for people to listen to you is that, number one, is you got to be you, right? But I don't attract every chiropractor. I attract the people just like me, or typically who wants to be me. I'm their 2.0 version of themselves. Does that make sense? Like when they see me, they go, you know what? I want what he has in certain aspect. I want to learn how he did that. So in the name of the game, in terms of business, it's like you want to be able to present the garden that they envy, but they can still have, right? Does that make sense? You want to be able to build a project, whatever house, but in the image that they can actually reach, but they can see it, they can have it, but they just have to go through you. Does that make sense? Like you're the solution. Here's the problem, right? Here's the problem. Here's the solution, but you're actually part of the solution. Like you can't get there without you. That's how you need to position yourself as authority. Okay? Like from an interior, like you have this crappy kitchen. This is the kitchen that you want. I can show you how to do that. That's pretty much your selling proposition, right? So I usually, I'll move past one slide. It's even turned off. Let me just sort of show you this one slide, because I think this is a slide. So what's really important here, and this goes right back to what we had a conversation earlier, is that what we typically do in business is that we see the client as a prize. We want to win the client. We want to win that. But it should be the opposite. You should be the prize. They should want you. That's why I don't accept every client. I only want to talk to people who actually want to talk to me, and plus then I'll filter you whether I actually want to work with you. So you become the prize. Now, it's a mindset shift. It just happens in here. You don't have to verbally tell people that, but it's got to be in here. Like you got to acknowledge that you're the prize that people want. Come and get it, rather than me having to chase after you. Okay, make sense? If you have that in your mindset, your communication changes, absolutely changes, especially in the consultation point of view. Like if you met with a client, it's almost like, you don't need to be egotistic. I'm not suggesting being egotistic. I'm like, I'm so good, right? You see that in American shows all the time. Like, I'm not suggesting to be like that. But you want to be so helpful, but that like, they have to work with you. Like you're the only person they want to work with. Make sense? But if you're constantly chasing clients, like you're like, oh, I wish I can close this deal. Then you're desperate. People smell it. They can feel it. You can see it all the time. These freaking people calling me from Austria, right? I don't even know who they are, but you can already know what they're trying to do, right? Because they want it. They're desperate. Okay? They're desperate. Must be in this area or something. I don't know what's happening. I walked into Wollongong, everybody wants to, from Austria wants to get a hold of me. Does this make sense? So be the prize, all right? So I'll leave you with this. Like, honestly, flip that mindset. Stop chasing, right? Stop chasing people. Let them come to you. And this is like going like dancing. Anybody ever go dancing? Right? So when you go dancing, what happens, right? Can you put your hand up for a second? Most marketing is trying to push people down their throat of what you're trying to sell. What happens when I push? She's going to have an opposite reaction, right? Make sense? You don't want to do push marketing. Selling yourself all the time, like here's why you should buy my product. Here's why you should buy. That's push, right? That doesn't sell anymore. People are smarter than that. What you want to do, is instead of pushing, it's to kind of guide and lead, right? Let them pull into you, like guide and be the lead and dance with them, right? Dance with them with the knowledge and the information that you got, and then at the end of the dance, they might say, let's have another dance, or not. Make sense? But it's about just guiding them slowly through the process. And yesterday, I'm sure you got to talk through the strategy, was through the process, right? It's a process. It's not a one-hit sale. It's about a process. And how, going back to the original question, like how do I stand out? It's like trying to be everywhere. It's what we call omnipresence. Steve said, you got a great brand. I'm like, how do you know? Well, how does Steve's not even in my market. Sure, we're friends. We're in the same, we're in the same group for a while, and he sees what I do on Facebook, right? That's how he knows. So I'm like, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, like I'm kind of like everywhere a little bits at a time. I'm doing multiple things, but it's like each one of those things has a different delivery platform. Make sense? And so each platform shows a little sliver of who I am. Like a Facebook, you'll see, if you just watch me on Facebook, you'll see one side of me, right? If you read my blogs, you'll see another side of me. Make sense? If you just know me as a chiropractor, that probably wouldn't, like if you just introduced me as a chiropractor, I'd tell you all everything about chiropractic, you probably wouldn't be interested in this room, right? Because you're not chiropractors. So I have to adapt the message to you guys, to suit. The thing is that it's about you, when you show your different sides of you, people get a 360 degree of who you actually are, and it completes that picture of who that person is. That's why I show the pictures of my family once in a while, because I am a family. I care about my family, right? I have no problems when I'm going on holidays to say, hey, this is where I'm at, and this is what I'm learning. And that's the process, because I'm going through the process. I'm journaling my process so that I'm creating a legacy behind me. Because I honestly, to be honest with you, I don't know what my next 2 years or 5 years is going to be. I don't know where I'm going to be. I'm not sure who I'm going to serve either, because I'm in transition. And so therefore, I just got to feel, I got to get a taste to see where am I going to be and how I'm going to evolve. Especially when you're young, like you have the whole entire world, right? And we're all young, just to be clear. We're all young, right? You have literally, the average age back about 100 years ago was about 50 or 60, right? Make sense? And there's a lot of people, like you would die, about 60 years old, I think it was, the average age that we were living, right? 60, 70 maybe, right? Life expectancy, right? You know how many centenarians, people over 100, are living right now? They're the fastest growing population at the moment. Those people didn't think they were going to live past 60, and they're living past 100 now. For some of you, your life expectancy, like in it was about 70 or 80. What does that mean? That we were expected to live at 70, 80, but guess what? You're most likely going well past that. That should scare you a little, but also excite you at the same time. It only scares you because you have this perception of what a 90-year-old looks like, right? But it doesn't have to be, right? It doesn't have to be. I saw a 100-year-old run, just broke the world record, in a 100-meter dash. It's pretty cool. I want you to just leave you with a couple of thoughts. Number one, it's your move. It's your move. I just met Tony Hawk 3 weeks ago, and he talks about skating on a skate ramp. Like you're on top of the skate ramp. You have the choice. You get to decide, do I do this or I don't? It's your move. You learned all this stuff for the last 2.5 days. A day and a half. Your move. What are you going to decide to do with it? That's your choice and decision. You have a choice to either be great or not. Jay-Z, when he was about 18 years old, he did this, produced this song that he did when he was 18. And he played it for his uncle. And his uncle's like, yeah, it's good, but there's no MC Hammer, right? And if he listened to his uncle, he would never have been the artist that he is now. So you have a choice to listen to the critics or not. I think someone we talked about here, control. I'll come back to control. You can only control the things you can control. The environment, the government agency, all the stuff that's changing around you, you can't control that. So stop worrying about it. You can worry about it, but that doesn't help you. You can only control what you can control, physically, and then everything else, what you can control is the emotion that you have with that. Does this make sense? You can control everything you can. Everything else that you can't control, the only thing you can control is the emotion that you feel with it. Is it going to affect you? Is it going to disable you? Or is it going to empower you? That's the only thing that you can control, which is about still with you. So focus on that rather than what's happening out there. Be aware of what's going on, but you can only control the emotion. And you can step into your greatness. How many of you have ever done something absolutely amazing in your life? Transform your life because of one decision? Yes? Okay. Do you remember that moment? Can everybody think of that one moment? Okay, great. Was it hard at the time? Before you made that decision or before you made that jump or whatever you did, was it hard? Yes. Was it difficult? Right. It wouldn't have been such an impact in your life if it wasn't hard, if it wasn't impactful, if it wasn't difficult for you to choose at that moment. Does this make sense? I can guarantee you those moments happen because it was hard and difficult and you did it. And when you made that decision, everything else afterwards helped you become the person you are today. Right? So every time you face an obstacle next time, see that as a gift rather than saying, man, this is hard. Because when you ride through it, when you have the ability to ride through that obstacle, you actually transform on the other side. You actually remember those moments. You remember those failures, those losses, and the wins because they were tough. But you changed because of that. Just remember that. You don't remember the easy decisions, whether you ate a burger or chicken roll. You don't remember those small decisions because they were inconsequential to your life. But you remember those moments when I moved from one country to another or from one suburb to another or one city to the other side. Make sense? You remember those decisions when I started that business, made a decision to go out on my own. That's what's going to define you. And that's the greatness that you're going to leave behind, the legacy that's going to transform your purpose in life and that will help others strive and hopefully be a role model for your kids and for everybody else behind you. Thanks for your time.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Laurence.
Pleasure.
Did a great job. Cheers, mate.
Thanks, man.
Excellent. Anybody got any questions for Laurence before he walks off and leaves us? Did you enjoy that? Yeah, really good. No questions? Nothing about videos or structure or anything around those? Laurence is pretty busy, does lots of, obviously you got your podcast, you do your videos on Facebook, and that's how I know.
Yes. When he was, Laurence, when you were talking about the making the video, holding the camera, how do you start the videos? I haven't listened to yours, but you do like YouTube, hey guys, you talk about, or you say...
Yeah, so you can do there's a format. So like when you do videos, there's probably a couple things you can do. They're structured. Everything needs some framework of some sort. So there's many ways to do it, but here's sort of one of the couple of key ways, right? So the first thing you want to do when you start a video is kind of go, what's the purpose of this video? Like this is not necessarily, you don't need to talk about this right now, but you got to know like, what's the purpose of this video? Like, what's the point, right? Because if you don't know what the point is, then it's going to make it very, very difficult. So one of the things to start off with is to kind of recognize, there's many ways to do this. First, I would typically do, I've done it so many different ways, but one is to kind of get engagement. The first thing you could do on a video, depending on how long it is, but the very first thing you would do is to talk about, you're going to learn X. In this video, I'm going to show you this. Or ask a question. I started this talk by asking you a question, if you remember, right? I asked you, how many of you would love to have more profit in their business? Do you remember that? Now, that's a presentation mode. Like I could have easily go, oh, thanks guys, really excited to be here. Thanks, Stephen, and thanks for the great introduction. I'm so excited to be here in Wollongong, and I could have done that, just like every other speaker that you've ever seen, right? Then you'd be like, oh, you just warm up to me and go, I'm Laurence Tham. And did I talk about myself right away? No, I haven't earned the right yet. I haven't earned the right to talk about myself because that's not who you came to see me. Like you're here to get the content, not from me. You're not about me. Make sense? So I asked you a question because what does that do? It's like, oh my God, you asked me a question, right? So you have to what? You have to engage. Like you have to, because just in case I go, how many of you would, what's your answer, right? Then you're like, oh shit, right? Like, oh, like you're on your seat, right? Because that's how so I always start off with a presentation with two questions. Most of the time is a question that everybody's going to say yes to. Make sense? So a similar way in a video, it's like, you might say, you might start off with a purpose or a question. It could be something goes, somebody goes, how many of you have ever faltered in, delivering a talk? In this video, I'm going to show you a 6-piece structure on how to actually deliver a great presentation, right? And then you can have an intro video there if you want, or right there, and then I'm going to say, hi, I'm Dr. Laurence Tham from X, and then just go straight to it, right to the point. So purpose, you got to really be very clear. You're going to have obviously, so that's just for you, and then you're going to have a quick introduction of whatever that thing's going to be. Like, I'll just give you, ask a question to start off with an introduction. And then what you want to do is kind of really talk about, there's a couple of key things. You want to really create, what obviously is going to be the content. The content has got to be very, very clear-cut, right to the point. Otherwise, it can waffle on a little bit. Okay, so that's why I'm suggesting you got to know what the purpose is, because so that the content becomes very, very, very clear. Because if you don't know what the purpose is, then you're just going to talk and talk and talk, and it ends up being like a 7-minute video, which then no one really gets to. Videos need to be shorter now, so therefore you just got to, if it's a content video, you want to deliver on that particular content. I think it's also very important to create some seeds. You're not necessarily selling anything, but you want to kind of seed something. So I might say something like, you know, in my Practice and Beyond coaching program, I talk about X. So I talked about like, hey, what, if you're interested, and you go, what is that program he's talking about? Like, I didn't say you have to join me. I just sort of say, in my program, I'm talking about this. Yeah, I might say, on the Wellness Couch, the last podcast I actually did on the Wellness Guys was on with Kelly Brogan, and Kelly Brogan was talking about this. And so it goes, and if you're interested, you might actually go check out that. Okay, so you're sort of seeding information. There's also then, it's about really, once you've done, so the content is the bulk of the video right here. You should have some seeds in there. These are just different components, not necessarily like in order what you want to do. Then you need to transition. So transition is how do you, transition is usually like, for me, it's more like, what's the point? So I usually talk about a story, and then I make a point. Does that make sense? So like yesterday's, I did a video when I was driving here, I didn't even know, on the Laurence Hargrave Road, right? I was driving on there, and I was just talking about, I can't even remember what the topic was about. Oh, I said, hustle and grind. I said, you got to stop hustling and grinding on things that doesn't matter. Like I was just talking about how people go into practices and go in their businesses thinking that when they're working, they're hustling and grinding. That's BS, because just because you're working doesn't mean you're actually hustling and grinding. If it's not actually producing the result that you want. You should be hustling and grinding on things that actually don't, that actually could be producing a result. And rather than staying on the main highway, like doing everything the same, sometimes you kind of come off the beaten track, right? And so my point, because I was already outside, like I was on the Laurence Hargrave Road, which is not off the main highway, I'm like, hey, I'm here. I decided not to take the main highway, and look what I found. Like something magical and absolutely something beautiful, right? Sometimes you have to go outside your comfort zone. So that's my point. We come outside your comfort zone, do something, like do a video that you've never done before, and do videos and go with practice. That was the point of the video. So you see how I used the landscape, where I was, to make a point of the content. Yeah? I try to do that all the time. And the last is call to action. Always have some sort of call to action. It could just be like, hey, go like my Facebook page, or go sign up for this, whatever. It doesn't really matter as long as there's a call to action.
And I think the environment was interesting with that video as well. That made it even more interesting. The content was interesting, but what captivated the audience with the video was the fact that you were on Laurence Hargrave Drive, you were standing there on Seacliff Bridge, and it actually created interest as well as the content. So
yeah, those types of videos get way more, I don't have time to edit, right? I used to have time, but in that spot, I just posted up. I don't have time to edit, so I might as well do something interesting with the background. Like 4 weeks ago, I did a video when I was on Whistler. I was on a ski lift with a helmet on, with my glass, you know, and on a ski lift with my wife, who's never been on camera with me, but she was stuck. So I was just up there. We did a video. So it's like, that's interesting, because you wouldn't normally see that, you know? So it's about trying to find some interest in the background or the environment to kind of make it interesting. So I always try to, if I can, I always try to make it, you know, the environment that I make, especially when I'm traveling. Yeah.
One day I'm going to do one in the surf. I'm going to get a GoPro and do a video in the surf. Yeah, one day. One day. Yeah, look out. Anyway, round of applause for Laurence. Thanks so much, mate. That was wonderful.